Yes, sir.
Can I get you water or anything?
No, I am good. I appreciate so much you have taken the time out to give me an interview for this position. I've done a lot of homework on your company, and you guys are very impressive. And I feel with some of the skills that I bring to the table and some of my previous experiences, I could be a value adder to you.
Awesome. Well, I want you to be comfortable. This is going to
Thank
be a
you.
conversation.
Okay.
This is not an interrogation. You know, if you
I
have
appreciate
questions, you need me to repeat something,
Okay.
make it more succinct or shorter, I'm happy to help.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I'm
you.
here to, just be comfortable.
Sure.
And if you need to think, take a moment to think. So
Okay.
start off simple, Can you tell me about a time when you had to manage a project under significant uncertainty?
Mm-hmm.
Ambiguous circumstances, where, your feet are really held to the fire and there's changing regulations. How'd you adapt your strategy?
Sure.
How'd you thrive?
Well, you want me to read the script, or can I just
Yeah,
give you
yeah,
some
great.
other things?
Go for it.
Okay. So I've been in many different projects at different levels, and one that kind of comes to mind is when I was in Japan, and I was managing a full-blown data center. So I'm just getting there. I'm the new guy, but I'm the leader of the old guys. And we had a outage at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And we had, from the military perspective, he was a 2-star general. So it's kind of important. So we had to really kind of get up to speed quickly to get him back online. So one of the first questions I asked was, new guy, well, we can just load our backups. We'll be in great shape, I thought. And then the first backup didn't work. Second backup didn't work. And I had phone calls coming in that he needs to check his email, and all these other people are very excited waiting on me to get this back up because they need to do their job. So bottom line was, we had to go through about 5 backups to find. And that was a huge issue because I had to manage the people above me looking for expectations of getting it completed quickly, but also at the same time, helping the people below me to get the task done. So in the end, we were able to accomplish it several hours later, but we had success. But the biggest part I learned from that was preparation, because the way I operate is, in a scenario like that, is basically finding out, well, how often do we do these things when there's nothing wrong? So I was able to kind of put in place a program that allowed us to run our backups, verify and validate the backups, and then do a weekly restore of a random backup to verify that it worked.
Oh, wow.
And that saved us a lot of time and a lot of money, and me a lot of sleep I would have lost. So
Amazing.
yeah, it was a good project for me. Excellent.
Awesome. So, anyway, yourself, did you catch the situation? Like, where was Peter when this happened?
You were in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of felt like, I wonder if the cherry blossoms were happening. Or you had some mental picture, right, of like what's going on in Japan. Like you kind of felt like you were there, like the new guy having to boss around the seniors that probably weren't excited to get bossed around.
Correct.
That could be a challenge.
Yes.
And relatable for everybody to kind of be in a situation, so you can picture yourself there. So that's an awesome example of how to describe a situation. And then the next step, Peter went into the action he took, right? And he followed through, and you're like, okay, I can see myself doing that. And that's excellent. You're following a linear progression, and then the result of it worked.
Yes.
Which is awesome. And then he went the extra mile, which if you can, do it. If he reflected on it and like, hey, maybe if we did this step, this won't happen again in the future. That post-mortem or reflecting on the day's events and what you could do better or what you could do to prevent it. So that's kind of going the extra mile. Phenomenal answer.
Yeah.
Great job,
All
Peter.
true though. Honestly, true story.
That's awesome. So yeah, anything you want to?
I think the biggest thing is people want to know, what is your value to my company? What do you bring to the table? Pretty much. And if you've done your homework previously, you got a good idea. And again, I say LinkedIn is a great tool to build profiles from. So when I do cybersecurity on the hacking side, that's my favorite tool, LinkedIn, because I can find everything out about you just from going there and the people you associate with. So what most people would do in this case, he's already looked at me on LinkedIn and other socials to find out, okay, is this guy credible? 2, is he someone I want to bring into my team? And can I trust some of the actions he's been involved with? So from me sharing what I shared, he's already done his homework. Because most of the time when you see a recruiter or whoever's interviewing you, they already know the answer most times prior to you answering it, or somewhere in the ballpark. So you don't have to lie. You just be honest about it. And if the situation came up, I'm a new guy applying for this type of position. Never worked in it before. I worked in a warehouse, but I managed projects in the warehouse. I wasn't an IT guy, but I had to take care of the trucks coming in, making sure they got unloaded, making sure the stuff got on shelves. That's project management. You follow what I'm saying? So I'm sharing that with you because the mere fact that people look at, well, I didn't do that. But really, you did do that. You just didn't put it on your resume that you did that because you thought what you did was less than what that was asking. But you actually probably did more than what it was asking. So that's what you have to sell yourself. And if it's on paper, then you talk to them and share that with them face to face. That way they get to know you as a person and get a warm fuzzy of, might be a pretty good candidate. Yep.
No, absolutely. And another tip, our second scenario is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be PM role for kind of a transitioning candidate, right? Somebody that's maybe they were a school teacher, or maybe they were just finished their duty with the service, right? And they're getting into the private sector. That's kind of how we wrote the second question. Another thing I would encourage you to do when you're answering these questions is when you listen to the question, try to identify the core competency that they were looking for, right? Like resilience or leadership, communication. In that first question, Peter had to take leadership. He had to communicate with people that may have been challenging, may have been abrasive. Like there's a lot of core competencies there. And what you're trying to do is identify a core competency and in your head have that story of like, oh, we got to talk about leadership. There's this time I was in Japan, and there's your leadership story. And you got it ready, and you can have one story that covers 5 different core competencies.
Correct.
So, and I'm happy to share some of this. I've made a list of about 15 core competencies that are common in interview questions. And Peter did a phenomenal job, but just try and listen for it in the second question. What could be the core competency? So Peter, tell us a time that you had a successful IT project that you had managed. What was your role? What made the project a success?
Well, I'll tell you of a recent project that I was involved with. I was asked to come in and do an assessment of an organization here in Tampa that needed to qualify to get business with the government. And really, I was kind of coming in cold. I had a great background in general, but I didn't know specific pieces of what they needed. So I had to do my homework. But then the first thing I really did after that was I went to the site and started talking to the people. First, I met with whoever the shareholder was, in this case, the senior person who requested this, and kind of got a feel of what they did and what they're looking for. Then I took the time to go to each person and talk to them about what they do, because I need to build up my list of people I can work with when I needed something. So I was kind of, greasing the skids, as we say in the military, so I can have success on what I was trying to do, at least to some degree. And that was really big because when I went through and I did the assessment, I had created a relationship. And the relationship that I created, because I took that time to go to the site, paid big dividends for me. Because now they saw me as a person, and I see them as people rather than, oh, here comes a guy to assess us and see what our risk looks like. Nobody wants to get assessed. I promise you that, right? Not a fun thing. But if you share them with them, rather, here's the benefits of it, and here's what you can do after you get it done, it's kind of like people want a return on investment. So if I'm going to pay this much money for something, what am I getting for it? You're selling the same thing, even when you're helping someone with the project. They're putting you in charge of it, so that basically you can say, I can do this from what I've done previously, but I want to find out, what are you looking for? So you have a basic skill. I had a basic skill coming into that particular situation. I understood project management. I understood deadlines, budgets. I understood all those things, but I didn't know exactly what they wanted. And the last thing I wanted to do was push what I think I know they want rather than hear exactly what they wanted. And that helped me tremendously.
What do you think that core competency is?
Honestly, I think it's important to, understand, all those things. Absolutely. I completely agree. Rather than like projecting, what you think, they want. I think it's important to like really kind of, put some feelers out there to really
Yes.
that you can get understanding of what their take on what project management means to them.
Correct.
Because it could mean something completely different for you than it
Yes.
and then making sure of those expectations like align and match and
Yeah.
everything.
And what makes good communication was
And listening.
he was listening,
Yes.
right? That's an awesome core competency. It's a key to communication. And, he demonstrated that he communicated well. And no, you're 100% correct. Well done. So, and what we can do after the interview, maybe I brought a couple extra questions. Instead of answering it, we'll just go through it and be like, hey, identify what they're trying to get out of this. Kind of like a rapid fire at the very end. But yeah, no, 100%, problem solving, core competency. He problem solved the situation, communicated. These are all great core competencies. So that one story could serve those 5 core competencies or 6 core competencies. So yeah, excellent job. It's a fantastic answer, Peter. Well done. It's almost like you've done this before, sir. And you notice how
Plus minus.
since that was a transition candidate, you notice how that question was significantly easier than that first question, where you're putting somebody on the spot of like, tell me when the building was on fire.
Right.
Why'd you pour gas
True.
on it?
Right,
And you're like,
true.
I didn't.
Very
Whereas
true.
that
Yeah.
easier question is along the lines of, hey, tell me a time you found some success. That's much friendlier. It's a much easier question for transitioning candidates to
Correct.
answer. So whatever role you're at, expect a question at your level. And if you're senior and you're going for that director position, there's going to be some, tell me sometimes the gas
Yes.
is on the building questions. And when you're just getting into the game, it's more of, hey, tell me a time that you were challenged. How'd you overcome it? So third question that Peter's going to answer, the scenario. He's a senior candidate. And rather than a big firm, he's at a startup firm, which is wearing many hats. They might not be sure what they want. They just know maybe they'll figure it out in the conversation and
Right.
flying by to see their
Build
pants.
a plane in flight. Yeah, that's what we call it.
Yeah, flap your arms as you fall. So, question is, Peter.
Yes.
Share a time that you had to lead a project without sufficient resources. You didn't have enough budget. You didn't have enough people. You just didn't have whatever it was. You didn't have enough of it.
Correct.
And what was your strategy for handling that adversity?
So yes, I've encountered that more than once, unfortunately. And the reason why I say it is because most people are tight on resources, be it people, money, things. Those are pretty much what makes it up. So there's always going to be a shortfall somewhere. So you go in with the expectation it's a possibility, right? And in most cases, you'll be right. So in this situation, we basically needed some equipment for a network that we were doing some testing on. And this test was supposed to take the equipment after it was tested and moved into the production. Sounded great, okay, pretty simple. But as we started going through the tests, we started realizing there was issues with the hardware itself. So we had a warranty with it, but it was only a borrowed piece of hardware. It wasn't ours. The vendor let us borrow it to kind of take it for a test ride, see how I like it. So we did, and once we started playing with it, we realized that this doesn't do everything we want or everything they thought it was going to do. We needed additional hardware to do that. Of course, most vendors, if you guys are in IT business and any other business, pharmacy, it doesn't matter, they're all about, hey, take a few samples or try this out for a little while. Because they figure once you get your hands on it, you start playing with it, you like it, they're going to buy it. Most of the time that actually happens in most cases. In this case, we couldn't because we didn't have the money. But at the same time, we had the stakeholders, the C-level, expecting it to take place. So in this situation, we literally had to break down the piece of what was going on with the project, show them what we were able to do, but what we weren't able to do to get it to this end state that everyone expected to put these appliances on the network now, and we're good. It's filtering information for us, and somewhere the riverbed devices, which basically increase the speed of transactions between the router and the switch. So we held on to it for a while, but then the reality came into place that we don't have the money to buy this. So what we ended up doing, we created, I kind of call it a workaround fix, temporarily, at least showing some progression towards what they desired, because in the end, I don't write checks. They had to write the check. And in a lot of cases, when it comes to money, and even people, because money creates people for positions, if the budget hasn't been budgeted for either one of those things, it probably won't happen. But the expectation that they still want it and need it is. That doesn't change. So you get creative. And so we got creative as much as we could. We tried to increase the bandwidth on the routers and kind of get things moving a little bit faster. And that helped a little bit. But at the same time, we also told them the bad part of the story. We said, okay, here's what we need. Here's what we have, and here's what we're able to do with it. Here's what you're not going to get. Now, I'll never tell you we can't do this. We can only do it when you're ready to purchase the items that we need to be successful with it for you, not for me. And that kind of helped because somehow money just kind of came out of somewhere. And we got the stuff, hooked it up, and off we go into the story.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. No, that's awesome. So what do you, maybe somebody in the back, what do you think that core competency was that he was discussing? Communication. What about maybe a little accountability? You know, he had to deliver some tough news. How many words that he's not allowed to say in a corporate environment do you think were going through his head at that moment, right? Like,
Creative communication.
yeah, and 100% communication. I mean, you're 100% correct. And like I said, there's a lot of, you know, on those questions, there's multiple answers that are correct, right? And you don't have to feel like, oh, I said communication and he meant accountability. No, they're both correct. So when you get in that and you're listening to that question, it's going to be a few different options for you. Choose the one that has the most engaging story, because I want to ask 10 different follow-up questions about how this went down, what'd you do? I mean, you know, like, what kind of Frankenstein colossal contraption did he make, right? And if I was a hiring manager and he was following up with engineers as a project manager,
Yes.
right, and delivering news to the stakeholders of like, oh, this costs $1 million and you've got $40. Like, that's a difficult conversation because at the end of the day, that customer wants to be happy. And no, awesome. I mean, excellent work. Anybody have any questions about any of that? You know, how he identified the situation or the problem, or went into the action, or described the result? You kind of saw how he went linear through that?
One of the things in a situation like this, and you will encounter it at one time or another in your career, you don't always have the answers, or you don't have the resources to get the answer. And you can't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, we can't right now. But also tag that with, but we could if. But the if isn't on you, it's on the people who are requesting it. That puts the priorities back in their plate, because in the end, most of us will be hired as either a manager, but you're only managing certain pieces, not the whole picture, right? Project manager, engineer, you're engineering a solution for something, or you're basically maintaining what's already out there, operational wise. So if you're requested to do a certain thing and you've done your best, you've done your homework, document it what you've done, because that's the key. As long as you can show you did your due diligence, as we call it in cyber, as in I tried my best, I looked here, tried to find a cheaper product there, this is the best I could come up with. Okay, then you can't complain, stakeholder, to me that I didn't do my job. I did my job to the best of my ability with what I had. But at the same time, I had no problem telling them, we can't get this done right now. And some people are so afraid, I've seen it so many times, in the military, outside the military, to say we can't do something. Or afraid to share bad news. This is not going to work right now. What do you mean it's not? Well, here's the reason why. Have a seat. But you got to have your ducks in order, as we say, to be able to have that conversation, because you're going to get troubleshooted on those things. Well, is always, well, why can't we? Well, what do we need? Well, I'm glad you asked, because this is all the things that we need. So when do you recommend I can send with my team that we'll have these things? I'm always playing tennis. You volley to me about you got a problem, I'll do my homework and figure out what it is, then I'm gonna volley right back. Because in the end, I don't pay people, I don't have a paycheck, I can't hire people if you're not gonna get a budget for it. So your expectation management, really, and that's what it all comes down to, and all of us are gonna have to do this regardless of where you work. Manage expectations of the people above you. Because when you're in a job interview as well, they want to find out how were you able to manage their expectation of what they wanted or what they're expecting, and you weren't able to provide it. Then you do your homework and just tell them the truth. Because in the end, if you don't tell them the truth and then you try to say, oh, well, we can get it done, I hate that. Because you really can't. You kind of become what I call a yes buttery. Yeah, but we can take it down. No, just say we can't. And hold your head up and keep rolling out. Document everything you said, and you'll be fine. If you can share that with someone in an interview, that's a struggle that you got beyond to the best of your abilities. That's all they're looking for. Okay, I got someone who's going to take initiative. They're going to do their due diligence and do their homework and research. And then they're going to be transparent, which is huge to me about can they or can't they. But if they just come out the bat and say, no, we can't do that. Okay, I'm going to ask you why not. Tell me a reason. So I already know you're going to ask me to tell you a reason, so I'll just tell you before you ask me. That make sense? So that's what they're looking for. And that's who I'm hiring. I've had many people I've hired over the years that did not meet the qualifications for the job. Out of the 5, 6 things that we needed, they maybe met 2 or 3. But after I spoke with them, I got a good feeling for the person. And some of the questions like Matt's talking about, we kind of went through some of those questions, and they gave honest feedback. And then some things they said, you know, honestly, I've never worked in that area, so I'm not really knowledgeable enough on it. But I'm a very hungry person for knowledge, and put in the right position, given the tools that I already have and with the tools that you can give me, I can definitely contribute to helping to get it done. Point it back. Always point it back. Get it off of you. You'll feel better too.
No, and then, you know, usually most interviews at this point, the role's slightly reversed, right? The candidate gets a few moments to ask about the company. So this is when I'd say, Peter, you have any questions for us?
I did have a few. I had read an article about you all had gotten hit with a ransom attack, I think about 2 years ago. And I'm curious, how did you all handle that?
Well,
See, now I'm out of this. I'm like this. Okay, come on, talk to me, right? Because I don't know anything about it, but he's inside. So I'm going to see, is he going to be transparent with me? Because I already got the answer. I already read it. Do your homework, right? So good. I'll let him tell me.
yeah, and this is where, you know, you may kind of give some insight to the company, like, hey, you know, that was above my pay grade. You know, I'm just director of program management. I'm more of managing the solution once the decision upstairs has been made. And what they decided to do, or what I was told, was that we weren't going to pay the ransomware. We contacted our VAR that was responsible for that endpoint, and you know, they collaborated, and we backtraced that Bitcoin address, and you know, contacted the exchange where that money would land, and told them to expect a payment. And we teased a fake payment, and we were trying to draw them out, and we had our incident response team ready, and we also had our backup team getting ready for business continuity plan. And you know, you kind of go on that thing.
But so I'm getting
maybe I did that,
all
I don't
this
know.
great information because now I'm collecting data on them. They've already been collecting data on me. But then the thing I'm going to hit them with next is, well, how much of that was your team involved with, and what were some of the obstacles they came across? I'm interviewing him. So I'm nervous in the beginning because I'm like, I don't know what he's going to ask. But he's nervous too to some degree because he don't know what I'm going to ask. And in the end, this may not be a match. And that is okay. But what did it do for me? I just sharpened my skills. He was a stone I can sharpen my knife on. That's it. Because in the end, it wasn't meant for me to be here in the first place. But if we get to another interview, it may be different.
Yeah, no, I mean, dead on. Correct. And you listen to some of those answers like, oh, you did have a business continuity plan. What'd that entail? Yeah, you got a follow-up question. You're like, okay. And you're diagnosing, is this a fledgling program that's one person wearing 17 hats and faking
Big.
it?
Yeah.
You know, did the AV person set up, their endpoint protection as well? And you're trying to figure that out. And then same time, we're like, oh no, we had this whole team. We had an audit from Deloitte, and this is the plan that they set up, and we executed. You're like, oh wow, they're spending money. They're serious about their security, because as a manager, you're trying to figure out how serious do they take cybersecurity, right? The biggest complaint you hear out of CISOs is, I don't get the support, right? You have one
Right.
getting sued into oblivion. What's this company doing about it,
That's
right? Your chief scapegoat officer,
Yep.
are you going to have the support and the buy-in from your C-levels or not? And you listen for those answers of, hey, these are the steps they have taken, have not taken. It's also, for the right person, an opportunity for you to be like, you know what? This is exactly what I want to do. I want to build a continuity plan from scratch.
Correct.
And I am just foaming at the mouth to get my hands on the non-existent or the one sheet of paper that's crumpled up in the back of a file cabinet somewhere.
And if you get into a situation where you have the conversation, as you listen, you also hear some things that you may be really good at that never even came up in the conversation. Like he talked about a disaster recovery plan. Well, if you built one from scratch from your previous company, now he's giving you a brand new road to go down to talk about you. Because again, I'm a salesman. I'm selling me. Is he buying or not? I got to do everything I can to see if he's going to buy. But at the same time, if he comes back and says, well, we only really have 2 people in the shop, and what you're going to be doing, because I'm going to ask, so what are your expectations of me in this role? Well, you're going to be managing those 2 people, and you may get hit about 2 or 3 different things at the same time, because it's a very robust environment, and we operate at a very fast speed. And in my head, I'm like, okay, that means I'm not off on weekends. Because I'm entitled to my choices too, right?
Yeah.
So I'm taking note of everything he's saying, and then we'll continue on and say, okay, well, it's been great. Do you think we're going to move on to the next interview? Because in most cases, depending on the company, it could be 2, maybe 3 interviews before you even get a job. Could be even more, right? So it just depends on the job itself. Now, we've had this great conversation. We've hit it off more or less as people and understand that, okay, I can kind of help you, you can help me. But that's not the technical interview. Because the next one may be a technical interview. If they're bringing me on to be a network administrator, for example, then now I'm going to talk to the network engineer or administrator already on site. They're going to ask me about the difference between TCP model and OSI model. And at what layer of the OSI model does the network layer operate and what operates there. So they're going to get a little more in detail. How do you set up a VLAN on a switch? And I'm just using that as an example, right? I can't be afraid of that. Now, if I don't know some of that, just say you don't know it. Honestly, I've never had to do that. But I have done this, this, and this. And I feel with what I understand from that aspect of it, it should be more easy for me to kind of pick it up.
So what you're saying is don't always say, oh, I don't know how to do that, but also come back with something else.
Bingo.
Saying, hey, but I do know this.
Correct.
I could probably learn that real quick.
That's exactly right. Because that excites them that you now, it's not like, well, I'm sorry, I don't know that. Oh, okay, you got anything else to put with that? You just
Making
always come, that's like the scenario I said, we didn't have enough money to get what we needed done. But I gave an option of what could be done and what also would be done if they provide the funds. So I'm giving alternatives. Even to something I don't know, I can say, honestly, I don't know that. I've never really worked with it. But I am familiar with other things that kind of tie into it. And I feel if I do a little more research and stay up on it, I should be able to pick it up a little bit more and kind of pick that area up to support you in what you need. I'm still selling, but I didn't say I just don't know.
I heard that you could, a real thing is like, what can I do for you, basically. Someone told me that, like, when you're interviewing, you ask them, what can I do for you to make this a little bit smoother or something like that, or in like an interview process.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of when you picked up a new technology ever in your life?
What, you mean like any technology?
Yeah.
Like a game system? Or-
Anything, yeah. That's your rebuttal. Like, no, I'm not familiar with that, but at this point, I didn't understand how to FTP or how to, close ports and configure ports. So what I did is I did this, and this, and now I'm knowledgeable about ports, which ones I need to really manage and which ones, and then you show an example of you in a similar situation of not knowing and how you found the knowledge. Like when I was in 5th grade, and I wanted to know something. They're like, Mom, what's this? She'd be like, look it up.
Yeah.
Right? How many
Yeah.
parents
True.
said, look it up?
I've heard that 28 years.
True.
Yeah.
So in the end, none of us know everything. You never will. So don't even hurt yourself. Be honest about what you do know, but also express how you're open and willing to learn what you don't. Because most people want to know, are you
Sorry.
going to take initiative to do the research? Because everybody knows Google still works. Because that's exactly what they just did. So you can. Go ahead.
This may be, I don't know if this is something that's normal or maybe it's unusual. What if they ask you something that relating that wasn't necessarily in the job description?
Okay.
Like say you're interviewing for a security analyst position, which is traditionally blue team responsibilities.
Mhm.
We'll get with that. And they ask you, do you know how to do penetration testing? And it's like, just like you said, that's not in my wheelhouse,
Right.
but I'm familiar with this technology. Would that be like a good example?
Sure, it could be. I mean, because for example, you're not an ethical hacker, right?
Right.
You don't do pen testing,
Right.
but you do security because you've been a network administrator and you had to lock down servers, administer user accounts, put group policy objects in place. So you kind of understand what they're trying to prevent someone from getting access to.
I
So
do
you're
have
just
a-
being honest.
no.
Go ahead.
I also have a follow-up question for you. Have you ever spent like a Saturday at a cybersecurity conference gaining more knowledge and information?
Yeah, I was just
There you go. You're here right now, right? And this is your example of, hey, you know what? I wanted to learn more about penetration testing, and I saw B-Sides had 4 different presentations.
That's huge.
I know Jeremy over at Abacode, really literally competing with us at 1 o'clock, was doing a Black Hat AI presentation. And that really fascinated me. I wanted to learn about it, and I knew he was a leader, so I went there, and that's what I spent my Saturday doing.
Yeah.
And you literally just did that. You're here right now.
Go ahead.
So I had a question. So when at the end when you have to, they ask you, do you have any questions for me? Would it be all right? Like, let's say I wasn't for sure if I answered a question earlier right, but asked the same question to them to see how they, like a scenario question, just to see how they would have answered it.
Well, 2 things. Do you, at that point when you wanted to see how that answered, do you have a better answer than your first answer?
Maybe after they would have explained to me why they would do it their way, because I was thinking maybe they're doing it the way their job told them how to do it,
Mhm.
and maybe I would have got insight into how the business works it.
Sure.
Because like I had one time when someone asked me, someone has a problem with the password, some VIP has a problem with something another, and then business is not working properly. Which one would you do in order? And I said, well, tell you the truth, I don't know if you guys take VIPs more serious since they are the VIPs, or so. Depending on the situation, I would probably do the last one first because it's more dire. Because if you can't run something, that more.
Okay.
And then I would say the VIP because I don't know if you guys would have cared for that, and it seemed like a simple problem, and then.
Yeah, no, 100%.
You gave your justification to the answer.
But you
That's
can
all you got.
always revisit something
Yeah.
because the interview's not over until you're in your car driving away.
Yep.
And even then, you still have, and this is where I guess a lot of people may miss an opportunity, and it's a great opportunity. Say you get home, and like a lot of us, we lay in bed, we ruminate, we're watching the ceiling fan go in circles, right? And we're like, I should have said this. Well, the next day, when you send your, hey, thank you for taking the time to meet with me letter, you're like, hey, upon further reflection, I thought about that question, and this is actually what I think I really would have done. And that thank you letter is always an opportunity to clarify
Yeah.
something you were vague about, right? Nobody likes a
True.
vague answer. Or give a better answer if you said, I don't know, I'd have to look that up. Your follow-up, it's not over till forever.
Until they say, hey.
Now,
well,
even then, because 6 months later,
might
they
call.
might have a different need. They might be like, hey,
Yeah.
you know what? Somebody had to try out against Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah.
And somebody got cut because when they're at North Carolina, Jordan was there, and right? That's unfortunate for that person. But next season when he graduates, they're like, oh, get in here. They're like, we need you.
Yeah.
So it's never ever over. Continue to talk. They're not their adversary. Your adversary because they didn't hire you at that moment, right? Their business will evolve. It'll grow. It'll pivot. Like 2 years ago, AI wasn't what it is now, right?
True.
And business needs have changed.
True.
So again, something else is going to come up down the line, and business needs are going to change again. And you might be right there just in time. So if you follow up with that person every couple of months, if they did reject you, that's okay. Just be polite. Obviously let a little cool down time, but keep in mind it's never over. So the thank you letter, you get another opportunity to fix a mistake. 2 months later, you get an opportunity to fix the mistake. Say you completely didn't know about the difference between TCP and UDP. And then 2 months later, you're like, hey, that question inspired me to go do more research. And now I have a home lab, and my home lab has XYZ on it.
Yep.
And I really appreciate you pointing out that gap in my knowledge. And who knows what stone that'll in turn, right? You just always are looking for a thing. And I actually have progressed in my career because during an interview, somebody pointed out a gap that I had. And I'm like, ooh, I do need to tighten up on that. And now I'm 10 times better at it because I put I didn't want that to ever happen again.
Yep.
You got a chip
Yep.
on my shoulder about it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'm never going to
Yeah.
let that embarrass me again,
Yeah.
and you fix it. So there's a few different ways you can tackle it.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions? Yes.
Is it okay to answer the question with your own question?
Give me an example.
For example, I'm being asked, what would you do in a certain situation if a coworker doesn't like you? And
Okay.
I'll answer it and I'll ask, for example, does that usually happen in your company that coworkers don't usually like each other?
So I would not, but you still can. Now let me explain. Answer the question how you feel you want to answer it. Then follow up with what you just said. Because you satisfied the requirement. The requirement was I asked you this. I need you to answer that. Not give me another question. But you still had a question. It's a valid question. But you've done what they asked you to do. But now you're setting something back on their side and trying to get more information. And that may bring on a brand new conversation. Who knows? Yep. Anybody else? All right, guys, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much. We appreciate you guys hanging here. We're not going to have a second mock interview. The person who was doing it had to take off for an emergency situation, so not a problem. But we're going to be here. You guys have any other questions, please feel free to ask. Here's one I want to share with you guys. I didn't get a chance to get into it with the panel. Money. Asking for salary is the scariest thing for most people going for a job. And I just want to share that because been there, got that T-shirt. But you learn over the years, every company has a set salary. It's a window, right? You have no clue what that is. They do because they know, well, whoever manages the budget, well, they budgeted for that guy or that gal that's going to be in that position. They're going to play you low end, just like the guys were talking about here early in the panel, because if they can get you low, so let's just say they're looking for a network engineer, and they have set aside for this position between $90,000 and $120,000. Okay. But here's the if you did do your homework, and here's the if you didn't do your homework. So if you didn't do your homework, you're like, oh man, I'm at 65 right now. I can get up to 90. Oh, that's a huge increase. True story. It is a huge increase. But there could be more of an increase if you ask the right questions sometimes. And you may not get the answer, but you play the game. So when they ask you, so what do you feel you would like to get for this type of job? They toy with the questions. I always ask them, well, what have you budgeted for the position? I play tennis or ping pong, volley back. Then they'll come back, well, we probably can do pretty well. Do you have a range? Oh, yeah, I got a range. But I'm going to put a range to where I'm always going to get what I want, but I'll take it if you give me more. So let's just say, playing devil's advocate, I've gone out on salaries.com or wherever, grabbed information on someone in this type of position with the general idea would be on their pay. And a lot of that's regional depending on where they are. People here in Tampa don't get paid what DC and New York gets. Entirely different systems, right? So you gotta keep that in mind. But I'll say, okay, I could probably do somewhere, and if I'm looking for 120 to let's say 80, because I'm at 65. And one of the things I've always learned over the years is work for me. I always add $10,000 to $20,000 more to the next job I'm going to. I don't need a lateral. I can stay right where I'm at. If I'm making $50,000, $60,000 a year, well, I'm going to go to another $50,000, $60,000 a year job.
Why introduce risk?
Yeah, that's wasting my time. I want to get something out of the deal. So, yeah. And they said, well, you know, we haven't gotten up that far. I said, okay, well, how close can you get? Because you gave me a window. I want between $90,000 and $120,000. I said, well, that's kind of high. I don't know if we have it in the budget. Well, how close can you get from your budget? Throw it right back. I said, well, maybe we can do this. We can bring you in at 90 and kind of maybe look at some things as time progresses. But I can then say, well, that'll be great. But how about a $5,000 signing bonus? Let's play. Why? I got nothing to lose anyway. I don't have a job. Or the one I'm in I don't really like, but I still got a job. So all you're going to do in the end is say yes or no. Period. You got a 50-50 shot. If you don't play the game, you're 100% lost. Because they don't get what they want rather than you getting what you want.
So I just came out of school not too long ago. I can do that too? Or
Anybody can do it. Remember this, guys. I kind of call it you Inc. And I say that to each one of you guys. You are your own company. They're hiring your company because you have something that they want or don't have. You have to conduct yourself as if you are your company. You never sell yourself short because they're automatically going to do that anyway for you. Don't give them the opportunity. You sell yourself for your value and then see where there's flexibility and wiggle room to get close. Like they were talking about earlier, well, maybe you can give me some extra PTO, which is paid time off. Okay, that kind of helps. And rather than everyone else gets a week every 6 months, I'll get 2 weeks every 6 months.
Always go for continued
Yeah.
education.
Yeah,
Hey, I'd
education,
like to get a cert
reimbursement.
here,
Yeah,
or, you know, hey, I want to get my whatever, name your
Yeah.
cert, and get it.
you got to get something out the deal. But if possible, I'll never say never, but if possible, try not to ever do a lateral from the same paycheck to the same paycheck. Because all you did was probably add more stress and less money.
unless it's less stress and then the same amount.
That could be, again, everyone's different places in their life right now.
Yeah.
And I say that to be honest because for some people, they may need $140,000 to maintain 2 kids, their home, college, lifestyle, right? That's fine. But then you take someone that's kind of been in the business for a while and has pretty much gotten to a place where they're manageable, no kids, they're empty nesters. And they're not looking to go up the ladder. They've already been there. They're coming down the ladder, as in responsibility, stress, working hard. They're trying to now start enjoying life. So that guy may say, you know what? Give me $50,000 a year. Because that's my play money. I already have all this other stuff going on back here, so I'm not really pressed for your dollars. But I can use an extra trip to Cancun or something every now and then, so $50,000 is good. And maybe throw in a signing bonus. Well, heck, I just saved that guy a whole lot of money because I'm not in it for the money at that time. I'm in a different place in life. And I know everyone says it's always about it is, but it also goes back to where you've been and what you've already been able to accomplish. Compared to someone like yourself, you're hungry. You're trying to get in the game and progress, and you should. Compared to somebody like me, I've been in the game for a long time, almost 50 years. And I'm tired of the game. So I'm kind of rolling off into the sunset soon. But it's okay, because you're going to be here one day as well. It's just the way it works. I'm not a rocket scientist. I just figured out how it works.
Could you, because I heard talk that, that possibly, like, instead of a 5-day week, people are wanting to just try to do a 4-day week. Could you ask for that instead?
Some.
Say, hey, I work this many hours
Some.
a day, and then I only work.
But I
40
first would
instead.
check the culture of the company first. Because if the company's on a 8-hour day, 40-hour week in the office, I really doubt you're gonna get what you're asking for. So don't set yourself up for failure. If you already know, yeah, well,
What are you trying to get a sock roll, or what is your target?
Well, like I said, I just came out of school, so really anything.
So I'll give you a secret, and this is hopefully it feels like too easy of advice, but I swear to you, it's some of the most valuable advice I've ever bumped into. The more specific you get, the easier your search will be. So while you're like, oh, I'll take anything, you're trying to like boil the whole ocean. But if you're like, you know what, I love gaming.
Yeah.
Now you're like, I want to do cybersecurity for a gaming company. And you can make a list in Google how gaming companies and then gaming companies with security department and start connecting with those people, but it gets you focused and it starts allowing you to identify opportunities, because the most difficult part of that entry-level role is identifying opportunities, right? Because when you're first trying to get your first role, you go to the obvious targets, right? Coke, Nike, all the big brands that you see, like when you go down the aisles at Target or you apply to Target, right? They had a breach. They know the value of cybersecurity money. And so you go there, but there's opportunities that can present themselves if you go towards a specific niche. The more specific you get, the easier it gets. And if you're looking for odd schedules, like some of these companies that have security offerings as a product, like managed detection response, managed blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
managed fill in the blank, they're 24/7. So they're going to have those night shifts. They're going to have those 4-day weeks. In the military, they have a few different schedules that, like Panama. And Panama is the most bizarre schedule you'll see. It's like on what, a 3-week calendar? Yeah, it's the calendar's that complex that it lasts 3 weeks before it starts over again. And you get 4-day weekends, and you work 2 days, and then a 3-day weekend. It's the most convoluted thing. But when you have 10 people on a Panama, it's one of the most effective schedules. So when, as Peter said, you research that, those managed companies that offer managed services are going to be able to offer you that augmented schedule or that I call it non-standard, right? 9 to 5's what most people, because you got to get the kids to school, blah, blah, blah. You got hobbies, you got the weekend. That's what a lot of people look for. But you will have an easier time if you're willing to work weird hours. In Tampa, ReliaQuest, always looking for people to work that
they
graveyard.
definitely are.
You want to work at 1 a.m. and manage sim logs at 1 a.m., there's like at least 4 companies in Tampa, Deepwatch, ReliaQuest.
that's a lot.
They're happy to have you, and you'll get a job much faster. The barrier to entry is lower. The interview is going to be easier because they don't have a lot of options for that 1 a.m. person.
True.
So there are 2 ways you make money, right? Doing something somebody can't do,
Right.
or doing what nobody wants to do.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Thank you both.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So I'm someone that's trying to transition from the IT support role
Mhm.
to stock analyst or
Okay.
security analyst role. And I know there's a myriad of factors that play into putting your career on the right pathway. I'm just wondering if you could offer some insight onto things that maybe like the size of the company for someone in my position that might be the most beneficial to learning the job and also have like a good opportunity to sharpen.
Can I ask what certifications you have right now?
Currently, I have the A+ and Net+, certified in cyber, IT squared, and working
Okay.
in security well.
Okay. Have you looked at the roles that you are trying to go to in the requirements form?
Yeah.
What do they say?
A lot of times they're asking for STEM experience,
Mhm.
really understanding the different tools that they're going to be using in
Mhm.
those roles. And I'm trying to supplement that by doing things like TriHacking or
Mhm.
creating labs.
Yeah. Okay. So, have you got any interviews for what you're trying to get to?
Well, I just got into my current role
Okay.
last year, so I haven't been proactively looking.
Right.
I'm preparing within the next 6 months.
Okay.
Start being more aggressively looking for my next
Sure. Yeah. From my perspective, one, you got a job, which is always good. And from there, like I said, that's why I asked the question about your certs, and have you had any other conversation about it with any recruiters or anything? And the reason why, because you want to know if that's where I want to be. Okay, what are they requiring? Are they looking for a CompTIA CISA, which is a security analyst certification? Are they looking for a CISSP because they want me to manage these people? So what do they want? And you need to look at about 4 or 5 to kind of get a general idea. Language may change, but in the end, most are going to ask for kind of exactly what they want. 5 years experience. Okay, so you don't have 5 years experience. Have you gone to college?
Yeah.
Okay, that's 4 years of experience. You follow?
Yeah.
Because all college says is that 4 years you started something and 4 years you finished something. Whatever you did in between doesn't really matter.
Just follow it. But in terms of like company size, like big, small, does it really matter?
It doesn't matter because you never know. It's all about timing this whole game. And you guys know that. Y'all been in business for a little while, had jobs. Today, like I said, today there's nothing there for that company. But tomorrow there may be because 2 people just left because they had new management to come in and they don't like them.
I'll give you another thing.
Yeah.
That gentleman that was sitting in the second row in the middle, he just sold his startup to ThreatLocker. And like you just never know who you're sitting next to.
That's
he had
huge.
a T-shirt on, just hanging.
That's huge.
He
That's
just sold his
true.
startup to a big company
Yeah.
that, and if you go on, you can look up companies on different websites on how many people they've hired and let go in like the last 6 months, 12 months, and 24 months. ThreatLocker has increased in size 70% in the last 24 months. In the last 6 months, they've increased by 18%.
Yeah.
So that company's growing like wildfire. They're going to be the next billion-dollar unicorn in
Yeah.
Florida. And he was right there.
Yeah.
You could have, you know, you just don't know who's in the room. So
But that's what you get from this.
Right.
Yeah.
ThreatLocker.
So does that kind of help a little bit?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I answer what you were asking. Yes, sir.
Can feedbacks be helpful from interviews? Because most of the time we ask for them, but we don't get a response.
Yeah, that,
Pardon me, I missed the second word.
Feedbacks from them.
Oh, feedback?
Well, it's all on the person, honestly. They don't have to give you any feedback.
It-
Some are just like, okay, thank you, we appreciate your time.
going through the motion.
Out you go.
And everybody's so quick to trash somebody on social media. It's getting harder because everybody's a little nervous of like, what if I give you bad feedback? Are you going to come, you know, flatten the car tires or, you know,
Yeah, well, and then you can ask the question, honestly,
you can
but
phrase it different.
there's no guarantee they're going to say something. But the good ones will probably say, well, you did really well, but it just sounds like you need to tighten up on your scripting a little bit more because you didn't really have a background in Python or one of the languages that we use. So I think if you do that, you'll probably be in pretty good shape for your next interview. Okay, cool, I'm good. Now I know something I can start digging into. But that's still all opinionated, right? But if you kind of can see, well, yeah, he did hit a spot that I'm not that strong, okay, then now you can start watching some YouTube videos on Python, pull down a virtual machine from VirtualBox, set up a server, start playing with Python.
I have a follow-up question for you. Like you just sat here at this presentation. There's a lot of good information, right? So if I had to rate it, maybe a 6 out of 10. Is there anything that you'd give us to make it maybe an 8 out of 10? I mean, I'm not trying to be perfect on my next one, but 8 out of 10 would definitely be
Yeah,
an
good
improvement.
question.
Nothing I can think of.
No, but you see how I phrased it in a friendly way of getting feedback? Like, hey, I understand I didn't get the role. I'm a 6 out of 10. What would make me an 8 out of 10? Like, ask it in a very friendly way that's not combative,
Always positive.
right? And like, hey, I just want to be an 8 out of 10. I'm not
Yeah.
even trying to be perfect, right? You see how it's just more approachable? And that's kind of, in that situation, a technique. There's
Yeah.
a bunch of them, right? As more time passes, the more likely they are to give you feedback. But in the same regard, the more time that passes, the less they're going to remember about it. So you
Yeah.
try to like, you know, you can always look up who got the job, compare your resume, see, oh, they had 5 more certs than me. Okay. You know,
Yeah.
again, somebody went up against Michael Jordan.
Yeah, but he brought a very valid point about the crazy shifts that nobody really wants. Because sometimes you got to sacrifice to get a gain, right? And that may be exactly the scenario. You know, you see some things out there, but it says like for third shift. So you're in there from 12 to 8 in the morning. You're like, man, I don't want to do that. I don't get no weekends. I can't go to the club at night. I mean, you know, all these things are running in your head, but you're staying at your mom's house. So is that really that important? Not really. Because like I said earlier, every job is temporary. None are ever permanent. Even the government jobs, they're never permanent. Either you go or they kick you out, one or two. So it's going to happen. So I say that for the perspective of offer yourself up for the stuff that nobody wants to do. So if you see something like that, send out your resume, but then on LinkedIn or wherever, contact whoever's hiring for that position. So, you know, I'm really interested, and I'm kind of a night owl, so I would really love to be able to get in on that evening shift, and I think I can definitely support you guys on that and hopefully kind of grow with your company. Oh, Marge, we got a guy who wants to get on the evening shift. Because they've looked at like 20 other people, and I said, nope, I ain't doing it. You now are the golden ticket.
Also, there's jobs that a lot of people don't want because they feel like it's beneath them if they get paid not a lot compared to what they think they deserve. Because like I had a predicament back in like December when I was about to graduate that there was this job that was only paying $13 an hour. It was a help desk position. I was like, should I really take this? I know like in the long run it would probably be helpful because I get the experience and maybe because my teacher was like, oh, my son's a weatherman, but before that he was getting a job. He was working a job that paid him nothing, but once he got that experience trying a whole bunch of different things because it was such a small company, he went and tried to do a year later he got a new job that was paying him double the triple amount that he was.
It happens.
So yeah. So
Small sacrifice for long-term gain.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, and that's where I go to the mentality of if you don't have a job, get a job with benefits. So now you can go to the doctor if something happens for you. But that doesn't mean you stop looking for what you really want.
Yeah.
You don't have to just put your tent up there and camp out. You want to be as mobile as possible because you're not planning on staying there long. So even if it's $13, $15 an hour, I got it. Not a lot of money. Can you survive on that? Maybe not. You maybe have to get a roommate and y'all go in together, but that's all temporary.
Yeah.
As long as you're in the hunt, getting more education, getting more certifications, looking at more opportunities, you're not going to stay there. But they got you in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I wasn't here at the very beginning. I didn't catch neither of your names.
I'm Peter Bagley, and this is Matt Schwope.
Matt Schwope.
What do you guys do?
A
We
lot of
actually
stuff.
just social engineered our way into this room. You're not going to believe it, but we were at the bar.
Yeah, let's go in and see what these people are all about.
No, I can. Myself, I've been a cybersecurity recruiter for about a decade. I mostly help security VARs, managed service providers, resellers, do big implementations, breaches, remediations. That's kind of my specialty.
Me, I've been around for a few minutes. I did 21 years in the Army and retired as a first sergeant, and became a defense contractor shortly after that. Started grad school as soon as I finished the Army, and been working as a defense contractor for almost 20 years. Been a college professor for almost 18 years, and been running my own business for probably about 15 years. So I do a few things.
To bring up the point, what you said earlier, that why is a diploma considered experience? And I went to a technology, and I didn't get a diploma because they don't
It's okay.
try that.
Yeah.
Why is that not considered?
So the game is changing, and this is honest truth. It's changing because employers are starting to understand, okay, I can look for this guy or gal who has this 4-year degree and something says science. Okay, great. But they can't do the job because really in college, they never taught them that thing that I need. But I got this guy or gal over here that's never even been to college, straight out of high school. but they have like 4 certs. And they've showed me how they can do certain things. Who am I going to hire? I'm hiring those guys. And that's what industry's starting to understand. It ain't even about the degree anymore. Now, yes, as you start getting into some of the executive level positions and higher managing positions, it's probably going to be a degree requirement, along with certification or something, depending on what you're doing. But you don't have to have that. I've had, honest story, I've had people who never went to college working for me, but they were smart as hell in Microsoft and Windows. And he was my lead system engineer. He got his certs, he got his hands on time, and he had the college degree people working for him. So that's why I say it really doesn't hold as much as it used to. It's kind of more of a balanced playing field now.
Well, and same thing I told that person right there, that I was like, what did you do with your Saturday? So yeah, I don't have a degree, but
Yeah.
the second you start making sacrifices
Yeah.
of doing responsibility instead of fun, like I'm sure we'd all much rather be watching basketball, drinking some beer right now, but we're here learning, growing our network, growing our knowledge, growing our skill set. Like that's your rebuttal for, oh, this is a degree thing. Well, you know, this is what I did. These are the sacrifices I made. This is when I was hands-on. You know, I was hands-on introducing myself to folks at B-Sides. You know, I went to capture the flag, and I did this capture the flag, and I was successful. You're just trying to point out your successes, your highlights, right? Because that's what they're looking for. They want you to tell you that. They would have booted you out of the building if they didn't want to hear your rebuttal. So they're waiting for you to tell them as Peter says, the yeah, butter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was Saturday I was at B-Sides. Yeah, but next week I'm going to be at this conference. And yeah, but I just got this cert. And that's how you want to look at it. Whatever you don't have, what's your yeah, but?
Yeah.
I just stole that from him. Literally, he said it 40
Take
minutes
it.
ago.
It's not mine. I borrowed it from somebody else a long time ago. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We appreciate you.